14th sign. Another numerous sort of the various kinds of miracle of God's most noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, were the wonders manifested as a result of his prayers. This kind is definite, and there is a true consensus concerning their many reports. The instances and examples of it are so numerous as to be incalculable, and many of these have reached the degree of consensus, or have become famous as such. Others have been related by such authorities that they bear the same certainty as well-known consensus. As examples, we shall quote only some of the numerous instances of this kind of miracle that are very well known and nearest in degree to consensus, giving some particulars of each instance. First example: the fact that prayers of the noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, for rain were always accepted, has been transmitted by authorities of hadith, primarily Bukhari and Muslim. There were times when in the pulpit he raised his hands to pray for rain, and before he had lowered them even, rain began to fall. As mentioned above, once or twice when the army had run out of water, the clouds came and poured forth rain. Before his prophetic mission, even during his childhood, the prophets, upon whom be peace, grandfather Abd al-Muttalib, would go to pray for rain with him, and the rain came out of respect for Muhammad, upon whom be peace. The fact became celebrated through a poem of Abd al-Muttalibin. And, after the prophets, upon whom be peace, death, Umar prayed citing Abba, saying, "O our sustainer, this is the uncle of your beloved. Send us rain for his sake." And it rained. Bukhari and Muslim also relate that God's messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, was asked to pray for rain. He did so, and so much rain fell that they had to ask him to pray for it to stop. He did so, and it stopped at once. Second example: it is almost as well known as those incidents about which there are many unanimous reports, that when the number of companions and believers had still not reached 40, God's noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, prayed secretly while performing his worship. "O God, strengthen Islam by means of either Umar bin al-Khattab or Umar bin Hisham." A few days later, Umar bin al-Khattab came to believe and proclaimed and upheld Islam, so that he acquired the title of Farouk, discerner between truth and falsehood. Third example: God's messenger, upon whom be peace, prayed for various distinguished companions for different purposes. His prayers were all accepted in so brilliant a fashion that the wonders of these prayers reached the degree of a miracle. For instance, foremost Bukhari and Muslim relate that he prayed for Ibn Abbas as follows: "O God, give him knowledge of religion and teach him interpretation." His supplication was accepted in such a way that Ibn Abbas gained the glorious title of interpreter of the Quran and reached the elevated degree of erudite scholar of the Muslim community. When still very young even, Umar used to include him in the gatherings of the religious scholars and leading companions. Also, foremost Bukhari and the writers of books of authentic hadith relate that the mother of Anas entreated God's noble messenger, upon whom be peace, "Pray that your servant Anas will be blessed with abundant wealth and offspring." He prayed, saying, "O God, grant increase to his wealth and offspring, and bless what you bestow on him." Towards the end of his life, Anas said, swearing by God, "I have buried 100 of my progenies with my own hand. No one has been as fortunate as myself in regard to wealth and possessions. You can see that my wealth is truly abundant. All these are the result of prophets, upon whom be peace, prayer for the blessing of plenty." Also, foremost Imam Bayhaqi and the scholars of hadith relate that God's messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, prayed that one of the 10 promised paradise, Abd al-Rahman bin Auf, be blessed with abundance of wealth. Through the blessing of that prayer, he acquired such wealth that on one occasion he donated 700 camels together with their loads to God's cause. See the blessings of plenty resulting from the prophets, upon whom be peace, prayer, and say, how great are God's blessings. Also, narrators of hadiths and foremost Bukhari relate, God's messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, prayed that Urwa bin Abi al-Ja'da might do profitably at trade. Urwa said, sometimes I would go to the marketplace in Kufa and come home in the evening, having made a 40,000-fold profit. Imam Bukhari says, if he took earth in his hand, he still would make a profit from it. Also, he prayed that Abdullah bin Ja'far would acquire an abundance of wealth, and he became so rich he was famous for it. He also became as famous for his generosity as he was for the wealth he obtained through the prophets, upon whom be peace, prayer for the blessing of plenty. There are numerous instances of this sort of miracle, but we consider the four described above to be sufficient as examples. Also, foremost Imam Tirmidhi relates, the noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, prayed for Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, O God, answer his prayer. After that, everyone feared his malediction, and the answering of his prayers also became famous. On another occasion, God's messenger, upon whom be peace, prayed for the famous Abu Qatada that he might remain young. May God prosper your face, O God, bless his hair and his skin. When he died at the age of 70, he was like a youth of 15. This is related through a sound chain of narrators. There is also the famous story of the poet Nabigi. He recited one of his poems before God's messenger, upon whom be peace, which ran, Our glory and praise have reached to the skies, we want to ascend even higher. God's messenger, upon whom be peace, asked jokingly, Where beyond the skies? Nabiga replied, To paradise. He then recited another of his meaningful poems, and the messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, prayed, May God not spoil your mouth. It was through the blessing of this prayer of the Prophet, upon whom be peace, that he did not have a single tooth missing when he was 120 years old. Whenever he lost a tooth, another would appear in its place. Also, it is related through an authentic narration that he prayed for Imam Ali. O God, protect him from heat and cold. Through the blessing of this prayer, Imam Ali used to wear summer clothes in winter and winter clothes in summer. He used to say, I never suffer from heat or cold thanks to that prayer. Also, he prayed for Fatima, O God, do not let her go hungry. And Fatima used to say, I never suffered from hunger after that prayer. Also, Tufail bin Amr asked God's messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, for a miracle to show to his tribe. The messenger, upon whom be peace, prayed, O God, illuminate him, and a light appeared between his eyes. Later it was transferred to the end of his staff, and he became famous as Dil Nur, the possessor of light. These incidents are all from well-known hadiths that are certain. Also, Abu Huraira once complained to the noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, that he sometimes suffered from forgetfulness. God's messenger, upon whom be peace, told him to spread out a piece of cloth. He then made some movements with his blessed hand, as though taking some invisible objects and putting them on the cloth. He repeated this 2 or 3 times, then told him to gather up the cloth. Abu Huraira later swore that through the mystery of this prayer of the Prophet, upon whom be peace, he never again forgot anything. This event is also among well-known hadiths. 4th example. We shall describe here a few events regarding maledictions of God's messenger, upon whom be peace. The first, the Persian Shah Parviz tore up the letter sent to him by God's messenger, upon whom be peace. When the messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, received news of this, he prayed, "O God, rend him as he rent my letter." It was as a result of this malediction that Chosroes Parvis's son Shivia cut him to pieces with a dagger, and Sa'd bin al-Waqqas broke his kingdom apart, so that in no part of the Sassanid Empire did his sovereignty remain. However, the Emperor of Byzantium and other kings did not perish, since they respected the prophets, upon whom be peace, letters. The second, an event almost as well known as those reported unanimously, which our verses of the Quran allude to, is this. In the early days of Islam, the noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, was performing the prayers in the Masjid al-Haram, when the chiefs of the Quraysh gathered and maltreated him. At the time, the messenger, upon whom be peace, called down curses on them. Ibn Mas'ud stated, "I swear that at the Battle of Badr I saw the corpses of all those who had ill-treated him and received his curse." The third, on their denying him, God's noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, prayed that a large Arab tribe called the Mudariya would be afflicted with drought and famine. All rain ceased, and drought and famine occurred. Then the Quraysh, a branch of the Mudariya, pleaded with the noble messenger, upon whom be peace, and he prayed. Whereupon the rains came and put an end to the drought. The incident was well known enough to be reported unanimously. Fifth example, the fact that the messengers upon whom be peace, maledictions against particular persons were accepted and realized in a dreadful way, is illustrated by numerous instances. We shall recount 3 of these by way of example. The first, he uttered the following curse against Utbah bin Abi Lahab, "O God, beset a dog on him from among your dogs." Some time later, Utbah went on a journey during which a lion sought him out from among the caravan and tore him to pieces. This incident was famous and is narrated as authentic by the authorities on hadith. The second, this is Muhallim bin Jathama. He unjustly killed Amir bin Adbat, whom God's messenger, upon whom be peace, had sent him as the commander of a force to fight in God's way. When the news of this reached the messenger, upon whom be peace, he was angry and cursed Muhallim, saying, "O God, do not grant forgiveness to Muhallim." Muhallim died a week later. They put him in his grave, but the grave cast him out. They buried him in several different places, but each time the grave rejected him. Finally, they built a strong wall between 2 rocks, and in this way the corpse was housed. The third, once God's noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, saw a man eating with his left hand. He ordered him to eat with his right hand. The man replied, "I can't." The messenger, upon whom be peace, said as a malediction, "Henceforth you will be unable to raise it." And after that he was unable to use it. Sixth example. Here, out of the numerous wonders resulting from prayers of the noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, and from his touch, we shall mention several incidents which are certain. The first, God's messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, gave Khalid bin al-Walid, known as God's sword, several of his hairs and prayed for his victory in battle. Khalid put them in his cap. As the result of the hairs and the blessings of the prayer, there was never a battle in which he then fought, but he was victorious. The second, Salman al-Farsi had formerly been a slave of the Jews. His masters had asked for a very high ransom, saying, "To gain your freedom, you must plant 300 date palms, and after they bear fruit, give us 40 okas of gold in addition to the fruit." Footnote: 1 oka was the equivalent of 1,282 grams, or 2.8 pounds. He went to the noble messenger, upon whom be peace, and explained his situation. God's messenger, upon whom be peace, then planted the 300 palms in the region of Medina. Only one of them was planted by someone else. That year, all 300 trees bore fruit, with the exception of the one planted by the other person. The messenger, upon whom be peace, uprooted it and planted another, and it too bore fruit. He then rubbed some of his spittle on a piece of gold the size of a hen's egg, and offered a prayer. He gave it to Salman, telling him to go and give it to the Jews. Salman al-Farsi went and gave them 40 ochres of gold out of that piece, while it remained in its original state. This miraculous incident, which was narrated by the most trustworthy and respected authorities, was the most significant event in Salman's entire life. The third, a woman companion called Malik, used to give the noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, butter from a leather bag called an ukah, as a gift. On one occasion, God's messenger, upon whom be peace, uttered a prayer over it while returning it to her, and told her not to empty it and squeeze it. Malik took the ukah, and thereafter, as a result of the blessing of the prophets, upon whom be peace prayer, butter was found in it whenever her children asked for it. This continued for a long time, until they squeezed it and the blessing disappeared. Seventh example. There were also many examples of water becoming sweet and emitting a pleasant smell as a result of the prophets, upon whom be peace prayer, and his touching it. We shall mention several by way of example. The first, scholars of hadith, and foremost Imam Bayhaqi, report that the well-known as Bir al-Kuba would sometimes dry up. On God's messenger, upon whom be peace, pouring the water with which he had taken ablutions into the well and offering a prayer, its water became abundant, and it never again dried up. The second, scholars of hadith, including Abu Nu'aym in his Dala'il al-Nubuwwa, evidences of prophethood, report that when God's messenger, upon whom be peace, spat into the well in Anas's house and prayed, it became the sweetest water in Medina. The third, Ibn Maja reports that a bucketful of water from the spring of Zamzam was brought to the messenger, upon whom be peace. He took a little of it into his mouth, then emptied it into the bucket. The bucket then emitted a sweet scent like musk. The fourth, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal reports that a bucketful of water was drawn from a well. After God's messenger, upon whom be peace, had put some of his spittle in the bucket and poured it into the well, it began to emit a sweet scent, like musk. The fifth, Hamad bin Salama, who was a man of God and was trusted and accepted by Imam Muslim and the scholars of the Maghrib, reports that the noble messenger, upon whom be peace, filled a leather bag with water and breathed into it while praying. He then tied it up and gave it to some of the companions, saying, "Don't open it except when you perform the ablutions." When they opened the bag to take ablutions, they saw pure milk with cream at its opening. Thus, these 5 instances have been narrated by well-known and important authorities. Together with those that are not mentioned here, they prove the occurrence of this kind of miracle, as definitely as those about the various reports concerning which there is consensus in meaning. Eighth example. There were numerous instances of barren and dry goats producing milk, and abundantly at that, through the touch and prayers of God's noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace. We shall mention only 2 or 3 which are well known and certain as examples. The first, all the reliable books of the prophets, upon whom be peace, biography, relate that when God's messenger, upon whom be peace, and Abu Bakr the Veracious were migrating to Medina, they came to the house of Mabad, called Atika bint Khalid al-Khuzai. There was an extremely thin, barren and dry goat there. God's messenger, upon whom be peace, asked Mabad, "Has this no milk?" She replied, "It has no blood in its body. How should it produce milk?" The messenger, upon whom be peace, stroked its loins and teats and prayed. And then he said, "Shway, bring a vessel and milk it." They milked it, and after the messenger, upon whom be peace, and Abu Bakr had drunk, all the people of the house drank to repletion. The goat grew strong and remained thus blessed. The second. This is the famous story of Shat bin Mas'ud. Before becoming a Muslim, Ibn Mas'ud used to act as a shepherd for a number of people. God's messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, went together with Abu Bakr the Veracious to the place where Ibn Mas'ud and his goats were. God's messenger, upon whom be peace, asked Ibn Mas'ud for some milk. On replying that they were not his but someone else's, the messenger, upon whom be peace, told him to bring him a barren, dry goat, so he brought a nanny goat that had not been mated for 2 years. God's messenger, upon whom be peace, stroked its teats with his hand and prayed. Then they milked it, and obtained sweet milk, which they drank. Ibn Mas'ud came to believe after witnessing this miracle. The third. This is the well-known story of Halima Sa'diya, the foster mother, that is, wet nurse, of the noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace. There was drought where the tribe was found, and all the animals were thin and without milk. They could not find sufficient to eat. But when the messenger, upon whom be peace, was sent to his foster mother there, through the blessing he brought, Halima Sa'diya's goats would return in the evening, with both their stomachs and their teats full, contrary to everyone else's. There are further instances in the books of biography similar to these, but these examples are sufficient for our purpose. Ninth example. We shall recount here a few out of many instances of wonders which were manifested after God's messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, had touched the faces and heads of certain people, and prayed. Thought first, he passed his hand over the head of Umar bin Saad and prayed. When the man died at the age of 80, through the blessing of that prayer, there was not a single grey hair on his head. The second, he placed his hand on Qais bin Zayd's head and prayed. Through the blessing of the prayer and effect of his touch, when Qais reached 100 years of age, his head was white, except for where God's messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, had placed his hand. That had remained totally black. The third. Abd al-Rahman bin Zayd bin al-Khattab was both small and ugly. God's messenger, upon whom be peace, touched his head with his hand and prayed. Through the blessing of his prayer, Abdurrahman acquired the loftiest stature and most beautiful form. The fourth. A'id bin Amr received a wound on the face during the Battle of Hunain. God's messenger, upon whom be peace, wiped away the blood on his face with his hand. The part of his face that the messenger, upon whom be peace, had touched acquired a shining brilliance, which the scholars of hadith described as resembling a white blaze on a chestnut horse. The fifth. He passed his hand over Qatada bin Malhan's face and prayed, and Qatada's face began to shine like a mirror. The sixth. When Zainab, the daughter of the mother of believers Salama, and the stepdaughter of God's messenger, upon whom be peace, was a child, he sprinkled some of his ablution water on her face. With the touch of the water, her face acquired an extraordinary beauty. There are numerous further examples similar to these, most of which have been narrated by the leading scholars of hadith. Even if we suppose each of these instances to be a single report and weak, as a whole, they still demonstrate an absolute miracle of Muhammad, upon whom be peace, that has the certainty of consensus in meaning. For if an event is narrated in numerous different forms, the occurrence of the basic event becomes definite. Even if each is weak, it still proves the basic event. For example, a noise was heard. Some people said that a house had collapsed, others said it was a different house, and so on. Each narration may be a single report, and weak and untrue. But the basic event was that a house had collapsed. That was certain, and they were unanimous concerning it. However, the 6 instances we enumerated above were both authentic, and some of them became famous. Suppose we consider each of them to be weak. Altogether they demonstrate the certain occurrence of an absolute miracle of Muhammad, upon whom be peace, like the absolute collapse of the house in the comparison. Thus, God's noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, performed definite, evident miracles from every category. The instances of them are the forms or examples of those universal and absolute miracles, just as the messengers, upon whom be peace, hand, fingers, spittle, breath, and speech, that is, his prayer, were the means of numerous miracles. So too, his other subtle faculties and emotions and senses were the means of many wonders. The books of biography and history have described them and demonstrated that in his conduct, physical being and senses were many evidence of his prophethood.